This $40 mountain bike is like a time machine. It's a quarter-century old, yet all the parts are original, even the tires and the dork disc. But it's not perfect, so we're not upgrading it. We're meticulously restoring it part by part to see what a bike from 2001 feels like today. It's a pretty ugly bike and it's not very special. Why would we be restoring this with such care? Well, back in high school, I owned the very same bike with this Manitou Magnum fork and everything. It was even this size. And so if we keep the restoration true and original, sitting on the bike should take me back 25 years and we can go for a ride. But how do we get replacement parts for a 25-year-old elastomer fork? Well, I found a guy. So today, we're going back in time and it's gonna be interesting. So I've already found that neither derailleur shifts at all. The front hub is coming apart, and when we start taking this bike apart, we're gonna find more surprises. We can fix all that. One thing we can't fix is how ugly this bike is. All bikes from this era were ugly. They over-branded them, and they were so excited about this new exotic material called aluminum that they printed it 8 times on this bike. Mountain bikes were in their adolescent phase and they were covered in acne, but I had a lot of fun on this exact bike. So as we take it apart, we can actually see that the bike is not in that bad a condition. These are the original tires and they're not even dry rotted, so it was probably stored well. It probably wasn't ridden that hard, but it sat around and it was neglected. I thought this was gonna be an easy one. I do wonder what else is lurking in here. So there you have it, the entire bicycle in pieces out on the workbench, and we want to put it back together running like it did the day it rolled out of Liberty bicycles in 2001. Now, some of these parts we can just clean up and they'll be fine. Others are not actually working. Neither shifter, front or rear, is moving and clicking the way it should. The grips are gonna have to be replaced. The bottom bracket is not spinning very well, and you did see I was able to find parts for the suspension fork. Where do we start? Well, I guess we can start by cleaning everything. I'm not doing it outside, it is freezing. No, I don't have my bike wash station anymore. Carpenter bees ate it, and so now I need to rebuild it. It'd be really nice to have right now. Really glad all that cleaning's over with. Now we have to deal with this shifter. As you can see, if I push it, nothing happens there. I can't get it to go back. There is something jammed up in here. I bet we're gonna open it and there's gonna be something really gummy inside. So I have my guesses as to what is causing this gummy motion here, but if we can't get it working again, it's gonna be pretty hard to get this bike back to its original condition because I don't know if I have another one of these. Looks pretty dry in here. Let me see if this other side wants to come off. It's pretty stubborn, and I don't want to break anything. There we go. You can barely see it because it's deep inside the shifter, but we're probably not gonna have to take it apart. All we're gonna have to do is invasively clean it. WD-40, this should break down that old lubricant and get this moving again. Super easy fix. It's all freed up. We cleaned it out. Now we're gonna finish it off with some 3-in-1 oil. So there's something in there to stick around. So we'll put it back together and we're done. We don't have to fuss anymore about a $40 bike. Okay, Dior shifters are good. Let's move on to that 25-year-old suspension fork. So a modern suspension fork has either an air spring or a physical spring. Back then, elastomers were all the rage. They didn't spring back as fast as a spring, so it kind of handled the damping. Actually, when they would push down, they would expand a little bit and push against the walls of the fork. After some years, they will tend to deform like this one has. This one's brittle, definitely a little bit wavy, it's expanded. We're gonna replace it with a brand new one. Okay, I feel great about this fork. It's gonna run just like it did back in 2001, except I have to leave my gloves on because this fork is coming apart again to put these dumb rubber boots that I forgot. All forks back in those days had these. They don't anymore. The wiper seals take care of it. I suspect they would on this too, but it's gotta be back to factory. Rubber boots go back on. Interesting tidbit, these boots actually do have a right side up and a right side down, and there are little vent holes at the back that have to face down and backwards. Who knew? Now it is time for hub service. Now, I've done this a bunch of times and you guys keep saying, we wanna see it again, show it again and again. So this time I'll go into a little bit more detail. So this specialized hub is quick release, which would be normal in 2001. First thing we have to do is take off the skewer. So you just unscrew the little cap and pull it out. Looks like the springs are missing because that's what happens. Now you can see this one is super loose. I had said the front hub is coming apart. And so not only are we gonna tighten this, but we're actually gonna take it apart, clean it, and repack it with grease. Any inexpensive bike repair kit is gonna come with cone wrenches. These are flat and they're usually metric. You can hold the bearing race still as you loosen that lock nut. Now this bolt that's on the axle here is actually holding ball bearings in, and so you want your wheel to be on your workbench with the other side of the axle down to keep the axle from falling out and ball bearings going everywhere. That's gonna be a bad day. And unless it's rusted or messed up, this should just come off by turning with your fingers. Now because this hub was loose, that means if someone was riding the bike hard, the wheel could have been banging around and putting dents in this bearing race, and so we want to inspect the surface and make sure it's not pitted. It actually looks quite good. And so we're clear to proceed. Now everybody has their own method here, but I am getting all the little ball bearings and all the parts of the hub out and into this dish that I've put beneath the hub so that it catches everything. And if any part of the hub is damaged, it's really easy to come by new axles on any bicycle website, Amazon, the usual suspects. Now at this point, you wanna make sure that there are no ball bearings stuck inside the hub. So you wanna push them down and really sight through. Both sides are gonna have the same number, and so if you can, you're gonna wanna count them before you go forward. It should be even because you should be able to divide it by 2. Now you're gonna clean up the hub itself and everything you took out of it. Do use WD-40 or your cleaner of choice. Just get everything off of it until it's bone dry. As you can see, I've laid everything out here in order so you can see it, and I have the ball bearings on either side of the axle, 10 for the right side and 10 for the left side. Now, if you do this count and you notice you're missing a ball bearing, you can actually measure it and go to your local hardware store. They often carry loose ball bearings, and as long as you have the measurement right, you can get a replacement. So to put it all back together, you want to start by assembling one side of the axle. You don't have to worry exactly where everything is because you can center it out once it's in the bike. Don't do it without putting some grease on it. So make sure there's some grease on your threads. Screw on your race. In this case, we have a little washer, and then our lock nut, and we can snug these up later. And from here, you're gonna want a nice big helping of grease. As one of my favorite creators says, the bigger the gob, the better the job. Put that in the hub, both sides. Next step, put the axle in the underside and put it down on your bench top so that it doesn't fall out. And now in this case, count the 10 ball bearings that are gonna go back in here. The axle is gonna keep them from falling through the hub. So all the balls are just sitting around the axle loosely, that's fine. You're gonna thread the other race on kind of loosely and then push it down so that you can flip the wheel over without those balls falling out all over your garage floor. And once it's sitting down on the bench securely, you put the 10 balls in the other side. Probably could have guessed that at this point. Okay, all the balls are in here and it's sitting on the bench. Now how do you keep them from falling out? Well, just carefully lift up on this side and then screw down, and both races are going to keep those balls from falling out, and then we can do the meticulous adjustment. So this part's pretty crucial. Now that the other side is locked down, we can actually adjust how tight the races are pressing down on the bearings. We don't want them perfectly tight. We want just the slightest bit of wiggle. That means it's perfect because when we put that quick release skewer back on, it's actually gonna compress those bearings in and tighten them up a little bit more. So once we can feel that little bit of play in it, we're gonna take both cone wrenches and we're gonna lock them down. So there you go, you're all done. You can clean up your gob and work on the other wheel, and that is how you service an old-fashioned ball bearing hub. Okay, with hub service out of the way, there's something else we have to repair, and it's also a bearing, that bottom bracket. You can tell it's not good. Now, do we have to repair this? No, we could replace it. This is like $9, but we're gonna repair it. This little guy right over here is a cartridge bearing, and we could just wipe the dirt off of it and read what kind of bearing it is, or we can measure it. Measuring it is really, really easy if you have a caliper. You get the inner diameter of the bearing, which in this case is the shaft. You get the outer diameter of the bearing, and then the thickness of the bearing. And then I can look in my bearing drawer and see if we have one that fits. This is a 16 millimeter by 31 millimeter by 10 millimeter. Here, look, $10 for a set of 4 16-31-10s. But because I've bought bearings so many times and it always comes with like 4 or 6 instead of 2, I probably have one in here. I think we have a match. Let's see what happens if we hold on to this bearing and bang on the shaft with a hammer. Forgive me, I don't often repair $9 bottom brackets, and I'm trying to make this accessible and not use like special tools, so we still have this little ring around here. Let's see if we can get it off. So, save your bearings and you can use them again someday. I don't even know what I'm doing, and I was able to figure that out. Now, we can actually put this bike together. So we can't actually align these brake pads until there's a wheel on the bike. When I used to work at a bike shop when I was 15 years old, my boss was really, really picky about this. And so later, I'm gonna show you how we used to do it. Now this is starting to look like a bike, and although I'm tempted to just put the wheels on right now, they're gonna get in the way of running cables, and we have a lot of cables to run. There's the front brake, the rear brake, the front shifter, and the rear shifter, and then they're all in individual segments, which is something that largely is not a thing these days on most bikes, especially with internal cable routing. Back in these days, you had to cut like 40 cables to make your shifter work. Let's get started. Those V-brakes have these little rubber boots from the factory. They're like dry rotted and brittle. We're not putting them back on, and I don't have an extra. It's not gonna affect anything. Now we can move on to the wheels. We don't have to install rotors, just tires and a cassette. And actually, because the original dork disc kind of disintegrated, I 3D printed another one. Now when I was a kid, I would take the dork disc off by unceremoniously jamming a scissor in between it and the cassette, which I'll do later after the bike is all put back together. As for the tires, the ones that were on the bike were remarkably well preserved, but we're not gonna reuse them. I want new tires on the bike, and so I'm gonna use specialized hard rocker tires, which would be pretty fitting for this bike. And then we can get the details squared away. So now we can align the brake pads. What my boss would have me do is do each side individually and basically get it right up to the bottom edge of the rim. Some people like to kind of toe them in so that one part of the pad hits before the other. He would just have me do it dead flat, and if it was off even the tiniest bit, he would come by with that wrench and just undo both of them and walk away. And so that's the way I do it to this day. Now, cable tension on the brake, I do my own way. It's worth noting, I never worked in a big shop where I could watch a whole bunch of other mechanics do their thing. What I do is, I take the barrel on the front, and I go maybe 3 or 4 turns out. Then I tighten the cable all the way in the back. Now you can see the wheel is locked up, but we're gonna bring that barrel back in. Now, as long as the calipers are centered, the wheel will spin, and it's really close to the rim. We just have to align the calipers, which you do with a Phillips head screwdriver right here. It is truly hilarious how few of you are going to need to know this. Maybe the 4 holdout road bikers that still have rim brakes. Brakes are dialed, we need a chain now. I could save that old chain, clean it up, but why? I've got a brand new chain, we wanna make this bike run like new. So when you have a 3x drivetrain, you wanna size the chain on the biggest ring in the back and the biggest ring on the front, because if you ever get into that gear, you don't wanna run out of chain and hear crunching. Now to be clear, you would never actually use this gear while riding, but you still have to size it in this gear. The rear is shifting great now, but all that clicking and clanging, that is coming from the front over here. We still have to adjust this derailleur. It's exactly the same as the front. You have your limit screws, you have your tension, and you make sure you can shift into all the gears. I like to do it with the chain kind of in the middle of the cassette in the rear. Okay, it's shifting perfectly, but you hear that? The entire derailleur is slightly too low, or maybe we have to move it. We have to adjust the position of the derailleur slightly. It's the outer chain ring just kissing it. And least but not last, we have these pedals, which are actually in pretty good condition. All I have to do is clean them. And finally, the worst bottle cage ever. This was not original equipment, but it's what you would have had in 2001. And now we can get it on the ground to make the final adjustments, and then we can stare at this thing and ride it. In today's money, this would have been an $1,100 hardtail back in 2001. It was built to last. It was built to be serviced and to be ridden. And after 25 years, all it needed was an invasive tune-up and a $20 chain to run like new. And we can't forget that 3D printed dork disc. But 2001 was a phase of mountain bike puberty, and in between. Their geometry had changed considerably, but they still carried the parts from their youth, like the front derailleur, low volume tires, quick release skewers, straight head tubes, and rim brakes. Toe clips were still fairly common, and yes, certain forks still used elastomers. Nobody's gonna remember these bikes for their beauty, but back when I was 15, this would have been a pretty cool bike. I would have ridden it in jeans, maybe with a helmet, and definitely with a whole lot of chain slap. Going fast downhill with tires like these would have resulted in flats if it weren't for the 40 psi of pressure. But the V-brakes, although not great in the mud, were surprisingly effective. And indeed, sitting on this bike is like sitting on a time machine. All I've done so far on this bike is climb, and it goes. It goes really, really easily. That is, if you can get purchase on the rear tire. Because it's low volume and high pressure, it's hard to get traction sometimes. That's why usually when I get a bike like this, I'm putting a mixture of modern parts on it to try and update the capabilities and geometry. But thanks to the 3x drivetrain, there's actually plenty of gearing, and even though this bike seems ridiculously small, I can just barely fit on it. People are gonna joke about how I'm finally riding a bike that fits me. It's amazing how large a modern size small is. Mountain bikes used to be way smaller in every dimension. But around this year, geometry really started to improve, and because the frame slants back and there's all this space on the seat post, we can drop it down and go downhill really, really fast. And I'm gonna put this bike in the forbidden gear, big ring, to stop the chain from slapping around. There's a lot of cable rattle that I didn't consider, but otherwise, this bike's surprisingly quiet. You can have a lot of fun on a bike like this, especially if you don't know what you're missing. We always want more, but people got addicted to mountain biking on bikes like these. The 26-inch wheels also made the bike really easy to trick. A lot of the improvements that we've seen on modern mountain bikes would have been possible with 2001 technology. For example, wider handlebars, different geometry. It was all stuff that we just learned as the sport evolved. They had advanced suspension for race cars and off-road vehicles back then. It just took some time before the market grew enough for that stuff to trickle down to bikes. One thing's clear, mountain bikes have come a long way. Amazingly so, but more amazing is how much the price of fun has come down. This bike was a lot of fun in 2001, and it's still fun, yet I was able to purchase it for only $40, and it was fun to restore. So if I'm still on YouTube in 2051, maybe we'll restore it again and see how a 50-year-old bike rides. I hope you had fun with me today restoring this bike. I hope you learned something, and if you didn't, I hope you at least found it entertaining. Thanks for riding with me today, and I'll see you next time.